Night of the Living Dead, 1968. It all begins here. A graveyard, a shadow on the horizon, and then the dead rise. George Romero's iconic Night of the Living Dead wasn't the first to imagine corpses walking, but it forged the rules of the modern zombie outbreak. The cause is never clear. A space probe contaminated with radiation, a disease no one can name. Whispers on the radio, static on the television, but no answers. What matters is that the dead don't stay buried. They crawl from the earth, hungry, mindless, unstoppable. And for the first time, audiences see the rules written in blood. Zombies feast on human flesh. Infection spreads with every bite. And the only way to kill them is to destroy the brain. This isn't one farmhouse under siege. It's everywhere, all at once. A plague with no cure and no warning. Romero doesn't just show monsters. He shows neighbors turning on neighbors. Fear eating away at trust. The world doesn't end with a bang. It ends with the sound of shuffling feet growing louder and closer. By the way, if you like horror movie content like this, be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks. Anyways, Dawn of the Dead, 1978. 10 years after Night of the Living Dead, Romero widened the lens. This time, the outbreak isn't whispers on a radio. It's everywhere. Cities are burning, television broadcasts are breaking down, and the thin skin of civilization is tearing apart. The dead don't stop. They don't rest. Every victim becomes another enemy, swelling their numbers beyond control. A small group of survivors finds shelter inside a shopping mall, sealing the doors against the chaos outside. At first, it feels like safety, food, light, and walls. But the mall is no sanctuary, it's a trap. The undead gather at the entrances, drawn back to what they once loved in life. Their shuffling figures press against the glass like memories that won't die. Here, Romero doesn't explain the outbreak's origin. He doesn't need to. The terror is in its scale. Humanity isn't battling an infection anymore. It's battling extinction. And in the echo of the mall's empty corridors, survival feels less like living and more like waiting for the end. 28 days later, 2002. It doesn't begin with the dead. It begins with rage. In a lab, cages of infected chimpanzees writhe under the effects of a man-made virus. One act of human compassion, an attempt to free them, unleashes something far worse than death. The rage virus doesn't kill its host. It twists them. Within seconds, eyes bleed, bodies convulse, and all that's left is violence. These aren't slow corpses dragging through the streets. The infected run, they scream, they hurl themselves at the living with a fury that cannot be reasoned with. Blood and saliva spread the sickness like wildfire, and in less than a month, Britain fell silent. Empty cities, abandoned highways, survivors scavenging in the shadow of what used to be civilization. The terror of 28 days later isn't fantasy. It's plausibility, a virus engineered by human hands, breaking free and consuming everything. No resurrection, no cure, just a society erased in days, leaving behind only the sound of footsteps pounding closer, faster, hungrier. Resident Evil series, 2002 to 2007, 2021 reboot. In Resident Evil, the end of the world begins not with fate, but with profit. Deep underground, in a facility known as the Hive, the Umbrella Corporation engineers the T-virus, a weapon designed to control life and death. But once it leaks, control is gone. The virus doesn't discriminate. It reanimates corpses, twists the living into mutations, and spreads like fire through blood and air. At first, it's an accident sealed below ground. Then, it's Raccoon City collapsing into chaos, its streets crawling with the infected. By the later films, the outbreak has consumed everything, leaving only ruins and scattered survivors in a world ruled by Umbrella's mistake. The 2021 reboot, Welcome to Raccoon City, circles back to the beginning, a tighter story rooted in corporate experiments and the city built to hide them. What makes the Resident Evil Outbreak so chilling isn't the mystery, it's intent. Humanity isn't undone by nature or by chance, it's undone by greed, and once the virus is loose, there is no going back. Diary of the Dead, 2007. Romero rewinds the clock with Diary of the Dead, taking the Outbreak back to its chaotic beginnings, but this time through shaky cameras and digital screens. The story doesn't open with clarity, it opens with confusion. News reports flicker with stories of the dead rising. First, they're dismissed as isolated tragedies. Then, more footage surfaces, different places, different faces, and the truth becomes impossible to ignore. The outbreak is everywhere. No one is in control. Survivors film what they see, desperate to prove the nightmare is real, even as the world collapses around them. Online uploads and handheld cameras turn the apocalypse into a record of panic, disbelief, and horror in real time. The rules don't change. Bites spread infection, corpses refuse to stay buried, and fear tears through society faster than any cure. What makes Diary of the Dead unique is its perspective. You're not watching history, you're trapped inside it, frame by frame, as civilization falls apart before your eyes. Planet Terror, 2007. Robert Rodriguez's Planet Terror takes the zombie outbreak and dials it into grotesque, grindhouse horror. The infection originates from a military experiment gone wrong, a toxic biochemical weapon codenamed Project Terror. When released into the air, it transforms people into pus-dripping, flesh-hungry monstrosities. Unlike traditional zombies, these creatures aren't just dead. They're melting, mutating, and grotesquely deformed, with exaggerated body horror that makes the outbreak feel like something out of a living nightmare. The infection spreads almost instantly, overwhelming a small Texas town in waves of grotesque violence. The outbreak is relentless and disgusting. Body parts fall off, boils erupt, and victims ooze before turning into savage predators. What makes it chilling is the sense of inevitability. Once the gas spreads, there's no real stopping it. While the film is stylized and over the top, at its core, it's a brutal outbreak scenario, where science and military negligence unleash a plague that spirals far beyond human control. The world here doesn't just end, it rots. REC Series, 2007 to 2014. The Rec films begin in the dark hallways of a single apartment building. A quarantine, a disease that spreads like rabies, turning neighbors into fast, violent predators. At first, it looks like infection, bites, blood, and saliva. A virus with no cure, multiplying floor by floor. Survivors are sealed inside, cut off from the world, forced to watch as their home becomes a cage of horrors. But Resispressing doesn't stay grounded in science. As the series unfolds, the truth sharpens into something worse. The infection isn't just biological, it's supernatural, demonic. What began as a disease is revealed as possession, a plague that science can't contain and medicine can't explain. The outbreak grows in scale with each film. One building becomes a city, then a nation, then the world itself. Claustrophobic fear expands into global annihilation. What makes Riki unforgettable is its fusion of the viral and the unholy, a reminder that some outbreaks don't just end humanity, they damn it. Pontypool, 2008. In Pontypool, the apocalypse doesn't spread through blood, bites, or corpses clawing from the grave. It spreads through words. In a quiet Canadian town, language itself becomes infected. Certain phrases slip into the brain like a virus, twisting thought into static, trapping people in endless loops of repetition until their minds break, and what's left turns violent. The story unfolds inside a small radio station, where DJs and staff piece together the horror through scattered news reports, desperate callers, and the pounding on their own doors. There is no visible plague at first, no shambling hordes, just the creeping realization that communication, the one thing keeping survivors connected, is the very thing destroying them. Unlike any other outbreak, there is no cure, no weapon, no barricade. To hear is to risk infection, to speak is to spread it. Pontypool turns humanity's oldest survival tool into its deadliest enemy, proving the most terrifying outbreak doesn't come from outside. It comes from the words already in our mouths. Zombieland, 2009. Beneath its reputation for comedy, Zombieland is built on one of the bleakest outbreak scenarios imaginable. A mutated strain of mad cow disease jumps to humans, twisting them into fast, feral predators with an endless hunger for flesh. The infection burns across the United States in a flash, civilization toppling almost overnight. Highways lie abandoned, cities rot in silence, and survivors are reduced to scattered drifters. These aren't Romero's slow, shuffling dead. They're fast, violent, and unpredictable, making survival a matter of constant vigilance. The only way to endure is through rigid rules and paranoia. Stay in shape, check every corner, never let your guard down. There's no cure, no organized response, no hope of rebuilding. The outbreak isn't in progress here, it's already finished. What makes Zombieland a chilling outbreak tale is its setting after the fall. This is the world after the virus has won, where the infection has erased order, government, and community. All that remains is survival, day by day, in a country consumed. Dead Snow, 2009. Dead Snow takes zombie horror to a frozen, isolated landscape, introducing a chilling twist: Nazi zombies. The outbreak begins when a group of medical students travels to a remote Norwegian cabin, unaware that the mountains conceal a cursed treasure. Soldiers who died during World War II rise from their graves, resurrected not by a virus, but by dark, supernatural forces linked to the loot. These undead are fast, intelligent, and armed, hunting survivors relentlessly across the snow-covered wilderness. Isolation amplifies the terror. There's no city, no authorities, no hope of rescue. Each encounter is deadly, and every bite signals inevitable death. Even if the infection is more metaphysical than viral, survivors scramble for weapons and shelter, but the outbreak becomes a merciless game of survival. In this confined ecosystem, the undead dominate completely. No one is safe, and the hunters show no mercy. Dead Snow combines the dread of being relentlessly pursued with the hopelessness of a landscape that offers no escape, proving that even in a small, contained outbreak, the terror can be total and inescapable. The Crazies, 2010. The Crazies takes the outbreak formula in a chillingly plausible direction. Instead of the dead rising, the terror begins with a military bioweapon known as Trixie. After it leaks into the water supply of Ogden Marsh, a quiet farming town, residents begin to change. At first, it seems like random acts of madness, neighbors acting paranoid, violent, or disturbingly calm. Soon, the entire community unravels as ordinary people transform into ruthless killers, alive but stripped of reason and empathy. Unlike shambling zombies, the infected here are fast, cunning, and unpredictable, which makes them far more dangerous. The horror escalates when the U.S. military intervenes, not to save the town, but to contain it, sealing off escape routes, executing civilians, and showing no regard for survival beyond quarantine. The outbreak's power lies in its realism. It doesn't start with corpses or monsters, but with something as mundane as drinking water, turning everyday life into a death sentence. The Crazies captures the terrifying intersection of human fragility, government secrecy, and the impossibility of control once an outbreak begins. World War Z, 2013. Take the zombie outbreak and blow it up to a truly global catastrophe. This is what World War Z does. What begins as scattered reports of violent assaults erupts into chaos within hours. Victims turn in mere seconds, convulsing before rising to join the horde. Unlike slow-burning apocalypses, this outbreak behaves like a detonation. Entire nations collapse in days as the infection spreads unchecked. What sets this outbreak apart is the behavior of the infected. They move with terrifying speed, attacking in waves that swarm and climb over one another, scaling walls and overwhelming any defense. The infection spreads along travel and trade routes like a pandemic, leaving no safe zone untouched. Governments and militaries crumble under the sheer pace of collapse, unable to mount any coordinated response. The film doesn't anchor the origin to a single cause, instead treating the outbreak as a viral inevitability. World War Z is less about surviving pockets of horror and more about witnessing civilization itself unravel in the face of an unstoppable worldwide plague. Train to Busan, 2016, a household name in the world of horror zombie apocalypse. South Korean cinema's Train to Busan throws viewers into an immediate high-intensity outbreak. It begins with a chemical leak that infects a worker, and within hours the virus spreads uncontrollably, turning ordinary people into frenzied, flesh-hungry monsters. The infection moves with terrifying speed. One bite is enough to create a chain reaction of unstoppable aggression. The film confines most of its horror to a high-speed train, where passengers are trapped in claustrophobic compartments. Every car becomes a battlefield, every door a potential death trap, amplifying the sense of inevitability. Glimpses outside reveal the wider devastation: abandoned highways, collapsing military barricades, and entire cities succumbing to chaos. What makes this outbreak especially terrifying is its combination of speed, sheer numbers, and human vulnerability. The virus doesn't wait for heroes or authorities. It sweeps through everyone without discrimination. By the time the train nears Busan, it's clear that the outbreak has escalated beyond the city, already consuming South Korea in a national-scale catastrophe. The Girl with All the Gifts, 2016. This takes a realistic approach to the zombie outbreak, and that's what makes it terrifying. Instead of a virus or radiation, humanity falls to a mutated strain of the Ophiocordyceps fungus, a real parasite known for hijacking the behavior of insects. In the film, the fungus has adapted to humans, reducing most of the population to ravenous, mindless hungries. What makes this outbreak particularly horrifying is its mode of transmission. Infection spreads not only through bites, but also by airborne fungal spores, making containment nearly impossible. Unlike traditional outbreaks, this one doesn't just consume bodies. It transforms the environment itself into a breeding ground. Civilization collapses under the weight of an enemy that can't be fought with walls or weapons. The story introduces a disturbing wrinkle. Second-generation children, born infected but still intelligent, represent both the future and humanity's possible replacement. The outbreak doesn't just destroy civilization, it rewrites evolution, asking whether survival means finding a cure or yielding the Earth to something entirely new. Cargo, 2017. Set against the vast emptiness of the Australian outback, Cargo portrays a slower but no less devastating outbreak. A viral infection spreads through bites, but unlike instant turn scenarios, victims have a 48-hour incubation period before reanimating. This delay adds a deeply human element. The infected are painfully aware of their fate, forced to grapple with the knowledge of their impending transformation. By the time the story begins, the outbreak has already ravaged society. Cities lie abandoned, communities have fractured, and survival has become a matter of scavenging and trust. The film centers on a father racing against time to find safety for his infant daughter before the infection overtakes him. What makes this outbreak unique is its quiet tragedy. There are no sudden collapses or government battles to witness, only the haunting reality of a world where the infection is permanent and inescapable. Here, the apocalypse isn't a single explosive moment, but a drawn-out erosion, reshaping humanity into scattered remnants clinging to the hope of protecting what little future remains. Overlord, 2018. Merging World War II, combat with outbreak horror, Overlord imagines what would happen if science twisted war into something even more monstrous. During the Allied invasion of France, a squad of soldiers uncovers a Nazi laboratory where experiments to create super soldiers have gone horribly wrong. The serum reanimates the dead, producing grotesque creatures with inhuman strength and uncontrollable rage. Unlike natural pandemics, this outbreak is entirely man-made, a weaponized infection designed to change the course of the war. At first, it's contained within a small French village, but the danger lies in its potential. If the Nazis had succeeded in mass-producing the serum, the outbreak could have spread across Europe, overwhelming both sides of the conflict. The infection spreads through injections and exposure to contaminated corpses, making it feel equal parts scientific and supernatural. Overlord doesn't depict global collapse, but instead a chilling alternate history where the apocalypse nearly begins in a bunker. It's a reminder that sometimes the most terrifying outbreaks are those created by human ambition. Alive, 2020. In this movie, the outbreak strikes without warning, turning an ordinary day in South Korea into a catastrophe within hours. No origin is explained. One moment, society functions normally. The next, the streets are overrun with chaos. The infected are brutally fast and vicious, transforming almost instantly after a bite, which allows the plague to spread through the city with terrifying speed. Alive narrows its focus to one young man trapped inside his apartment, forced to watch the collapse unfold through television broadcasts and the view from his balcony. As communications fail and rescue efforts falter, it becomes clear the outbreak has spread far beyond his neighborhood, consuming entire urban centers and likely the entire nation. What makes this outbreak so frightening is its suddenness. There's no warning, no gradual descent. Civilization crumbles in a single day. Alive captures the raw helplessness of isolation during an unstoppable collapse, where survival depends not on preparation, but on sheer luck and quick thinking. Army of the Dead and Army of Thieves. Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead begins with a military convoy accident near Las Vegas, releasing a super zombie created through secret experiments. Once unleashed, the infection spreads rapidly through the city, overwhelming it within days. The U.S. government reacts by walling off Las Vegas with shipping containers, sealing the outbreak inside but abandoning the city to the undead. These zombies are not uniform. Some are faster, others display intelligence, and the alpha strain demonstrates coordination and even hierarchy. Within the walls, the outbreak evolves into something far more complex than simple chaos, turning Vegas into a sealed-off kingdom of the dead. The prequel, Army of Thieves, doesn't show the outbreak itself, but lays the groundwork for the events leading to quarantine, emphasizing how the world underestimated what was coming. What sets this outbreak apart is its mix of containment and escalation. Humanity believes it has trapped the infection, yet inside the walls, a new ecosystem thrives, a terrifying reminder that control is only an illusion. The Sadness. Taiwanese horror cinema's masterpiece, The Sadness, unleashes one of the most disturbing outbreaks in modern zombie cinema. A mutated virus, long dismissed as little more than a mild flu, suddenly shifts into something horrific. Those infected don't lose their minds entirely. Instead, they retain intelligence while shedding all restraint, becoming sadistic killers driven to inflict cruelty as much as spread the disease. The infection spreads with terrifying speed, transmitted through blood and bodily fluids, overwhelming Taipei within hours. Streets, hospitals, and public spaces collapse into chaos almost instantly, leaving citizens and authorities powerless to respond. What makes this outbreak uniquely horrifying is not just its speed, but its brutality. Unlike mindless hordes, the infected take pleasure in tormenting others, turning the city into a nightmare of calculated violence. The outbreak feels final, unstoppable, and uniquely human. The Sadness strips away the distance of traditional zombie horror, forcing viewers to confront the darkest impulses lurking within people, impulses that, under the right conditions, could be far more terrifying than the undead themselves. Zom 100, Bucket List of the Dead, 2023. Unlike most zombie films that dive straight into despair, Zom 100 flips the script while still delivering a full-blown outbreak scenario. The story begins when Akira, a burned-out office worker, wakes up to find Tokyo overrun by zombies. The outbreak here isn't given a scientific or mystical explanation. It just happens suddenly, engulfing the city in chaos. The undead themselves follow the classic rules. bites spread the infection quickly, the transformation is near instant, and the horde overwhelms through sheer numbers. What makes this outbreak terrifying beneath the film's brighter tone is the speed at which society collapses. The skyscraper-packed city becomes a cage, with survivors trapped in high-rises or left scrambling in blood-soaked streets. The sheer density of Tokyo magnifies the threat, since once one person turns, an entire block is consumed in minutes. Akira's bucket list approach provides a unique angle, but the outbreak itself never loses its menace. The zombies are a constant reminder that freedom and joy only exist when you outrun death itself. What is your favorite zombie outbreak movie? Let us know in the comments down below. If you guys enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. It will be greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching, and catch you on the next one.